that stuff would come to us in a plan before the application process, so we could address it at the very beginning.
So they were obligated to provide you a plan?
I would assume so. Normally, that's what happens, is we're given plans with the application to show property lines and pocket configurations and certified documents from engineers. I'm not an engineer. I can't tell you how many pocket spaces they need or how many pocket spaces are correct or not correct.
I guess what I'm trying to identify whether they are, if they are obligated to do it, then you can't answer this, but why didn't they? If they're not obligated, then why should they? You know, trying to, is it good to let the police department know? Probably yes, but are they required by law to do so? Again, that's what I'm trying to identify.
And I don't know the answer to that, but once again, I'm basing my decisions on what I can see with my naked eye without
I understand.
any engineering background, so.
Okay, and also in your letter you say that it's incumbent upon the applicant to submit a certified plot plan, okay? And looking into that, is that as that incumbency a duty or an obligation?
Well,
Are they required to do that, or is that?
I don't know, and actually, if you go a couple lines before that, I said it should be incumbent upon the applicant. I don't know whether it is or it isn't.
Right. So I guess I'm trying to identify, and if we can't answer it here, we can't answer it. But, you know, are they not doing something they're supposed to do, or is there no requirement for them to do this, and so therefore it kind of puts them into a position where we didn't know we had to do it, and so we didn't do it, and, but now we're finding out we should do it, you know. But if there's no obligation, then I'm not sure if we can hold them accountable for doing or not doing.
Yeah, I don't know if accountability is the answer. I guess I'm going to use a non-licensed establishment, a liquor license. I'm going to add Walgreens. When Walgreens proposes they're going to put a store on 28, obviously they have to go through the planning commission with documents and engineered documents as far as the run-ups concerned, pocket space concerned, handicap spots, entrances, sight lines, and whatnot. And those are all certified engineer plans. And then they review throughout the committees in town and the police department. Well, that never took place here. We're basing our decisions on what I can see with my naked eye, through past experience, through my 25 years in the police department, what I think would happen, what shouldn't happen, but I have no documents in front of me to even know where the property line is.
I guess what I'm going through my head here is, you know, again, you know, what are they required to do? I mean, they are, my observation is they're trying to do everything that they can, okay? But they seem to be not getting the direction that they need to accomplish what is being asked of them, okay? And I'm not saying it has anything to do with it. I'm going beyond the police department at this point, okay? So they have an established structure, okay, versus Walgreens, example of Walgreens. It's a whole new structure. This was an established structure. I'm sure there's some grandfathering going in there about the way it was set up, because anything before that time parked, angle parked, and so on. So, in fairness to someone that's trying to establish a restaurant or any kind of business, it's hard to hold them accountable for something they don't know what they're accountable for. And if they're not obligated to send certain reports under the conditions that establishment opened, if they're not obligated, then I'm not sure we should be obligating them to do certain things.
I understand what you're saying. Once again, based on the information that we have and that we've received, I gave you the best information I can give you back. Mm-hmm. As far as what role the town plays as far as community planning, they inform me it's not under their jurisdiction. I know in other communities, when a change of use happens in a structure, it does go before their planning board. That may be different in North Bend, but I'm not sure. Based on the information from the planning director, it devolves back in the board's court that we have no certified documents from the applicant regarding the parking lot.
Okay, it just sounds like we don't have any procedure in place to even do the things that we're trying to accomplish here. That's my observation. I don't know if it feels the same way.
Mr. O'Leary.
If I could help confuse the issue. If this were a new establishment coming in, it'd be subject to site plan review. Because it's just an expansion of a current use in the same location, it didn't fall under the same purviews. And by the way, our bylaws are pretty restrictive in relation to other communities too, so pretty extensive. So that's why they didn't do it. But the fact remains, all of these issues have been flushed out ad nauseum, whether it be in this previous hearing that we had and before the ABCC, so that if there were objections that were raised and concerns that were raised, they were all out on the table. And if the applicant is looking to alleviate those concerns, they can always go above and beyond what is, quote, required by the law in order to address those concerns. Now, the question is, have they been adequately addressed by the applicant or not? And I guess we'll determine that, at the end of the hearing here. Police department's done their job.
Good one.
They've done a good job as far as looking at the situation based upon the information they were presented, and based upon whatever requirements the applicant had to meet. Whatever they had to meet, they may have met the letter of the law and some of the requirements, but they don't alleviate the concerns from a public safety standpoint that have been addressed to the full extent, which studies, plans, layouts could have been provided by the applicant in order to do that. They chose not to. So I don't think we need to grill the sergeant anymore. He's done his job.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary.
Well, I would just,
Hold it. Mr. Delaney.
Mr. Larry, I just think it's a little unfair to say that the applicant chose not to do so. I see in a letter dated from Sergeant Romeo, 11/9, he suggested that they should be required to provide a certified plot plan, parking configuration plan certified by an engineer. If they had gone to CPC, which it seems like they have, as well as Sergeant Romeo, CPC says they comply with what they needed to do, because it's an existing business that they just expanded. So at that point, if they're not given any direction, how would they know until they got in here this evening? So I've heard nothing that they received this letter.
I've heard nothing more in the way of arguments that were not presented previously. So if I were an applicant, I would certainly want to remove those arguments, address them, and go above and beyond what may be required in order to alleviate the licensing board's concerns, or the police department's concerns, or the building inspector, or whoever else weighed in.
I just think
That's
it's
all.
all
But
right. I disagree. I just take issue with the
That's
fact that
okay.
they chose not to. I don't know whether they
Whether
chose
they-
not to, weren't instructed to.
They didn't, for whatever reason.
Thank you, Mr. Romeo. I think the against attorney had some questions.
With respect to the sergeant, I understand his concerns, but I've gone through your bylaws, and there is no distinction between a restaurant, a CD license, and a CD license with alcohol with respect to the parking requirements that are in your bylaws. The parking requirements just go to restaurant. This restaurant has been operating under a CD license for it's almost 3 years now, with the same capacity and the same parking. So I don't see any, it's been inadequate, now for 3 years. And we have had not one complaint, not one road to say what we're doing. It's only as a result of this. And we submit to you that the addition of just a beer and wine license doesn't raise the number of parking spaces concerns that are there, because the capacity of the building will not change. That is what the parking is tied to. It's tied to capacity, not what's being served inside premises. So we would say that right now, we believe that we're in conformance. If not, the CD license wouldn't be there for 3 years. I understand what the sergeant is saying, is normally you have applications all done for new construction. That's why I said at the beginning, this is why this situation is unique, because you have an existing restaurant that's been operating for 3 years, and they're the factors that we have to take into account. Now, what is it that's happening there as to best case scenario, what would happen after new construction?
I think that there's
Mr.
been an
Chair-
expansion of the use of the restaurant since they've been in there. But previously, there was a hairdresser, which they've taken over that. So the capacity of the restaurant has expanded over the time period, and whether they've gone through the proper licensing or whether they met all the terms and conditions, but to come before us and say that nothing has changed in 3 years and nothing has happened, that isn't true. They've basically doubled the size of the restaurant when they took over the other vacant space. So there has been a change in the capacity and the expansion of their business since they've taken over. Agree?
No, but I'm saying.
You don't agree?
I.
Agree?
That's true, but
Okay.
that's why I started off, that the parking spaces that are there meet your bylaws for the capacity that is in the restaurant now as built. So that, I think that's where we're at. That right now, we are operating, we have not been told otherwise, we're operating at an incorrect capacity. And that's what the parking spaces would affect, capacity.
If I could just answer to what the council.
Yes.
Excuse me. She is correct. For years, they have been running that restaurant out of that parking lot. When the application came to the police department, we did our own site visit and our safety, because like I said, this was not a proactive step by the police department searching out parking lots that weren't in compliance. This was reactive to an application for an alcohol license. Based on that application, we looked at all the safety concerns in that area. And obviously, the dynamics when you add alcohol compound those safety concerns. And that's why the parking lot configuration was looked at. We determined and found out that it did not go through site plan review. And in fact, the restaurant did double in size and character. And we believe that based on information we have now, that the parking lot is substantial.
Mr. Chair?
I think there's one other thing that we just learned, that in fact, those parking spaces out front that went from diagonal to parallel are not really
Yeah,
legal
and-
parking
and
spaces
in defense
either.
of the applicants and council, that was probably brought to them tonight. I just found out a few days ago that that is not owned by the landlord or the applicant, and it's town-owned land, and that the property line is at the curb.
Okay. Mr.
Sure.
Delaney.
Ms. Conway, do you have any document or any engineer design a plan that shows that the parking spaces are the proper width and length as required?
I have one, I don't have it with me, I'm happy to submit
Because
it to you.
I understand what you're saying, they've been operating this way, there hasn't been any complaints, but I think this is an opportunity for this board, though it may not have been addressed, if it's not, then that could be an issue if they're not the proper length and
I
width.
think what the best thing for me to do then is to ask you to have a public hearing and keep it open until I can submit to you an accurate plan of what exists now.
And if those, assume that the information the sergeant has is correct concerning the on-street parking, if you eliminate those 3 spots, is there still sufficient spots, in your opinion, to satisfy the seating capacity?
We can lose one spot without losing any seating capacity. I'd have to go back and determine that. I don't want to make a representation that I don't know is true, because right now, as I said, we have 4 employee parking spaces, which are not required. And we can get, we do have the ability to get the additional off-street parking across the street at the gas station. That's available at any time. But we're currently under our control. I'm happy to give you a plan, and I think the information that you need to make your decision, we're happy to give to you.
And were you aware of this prior to tonight regarding the suggestion by?
My understanding is that Mr. Del Greco has been going along and repainted and everything was okay. If there is a report from Mr. Tilton, I'm going to ask the Sergeant Romeo to submit a copy of it and make it an exhibit, so we're referring to something I haven't seen. If I may, gentlemen.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
sit. I have
I'd like to have a comment too.
a question, and if you're talking about plans that you have, right, for parking, if those are the plans you submitted to the ABC hearing, which I attended,
Right.
those are inadequate.
Well, I'm happy to get, as I said, I'm happy to submit to you, have plans drawn to scale.
No,
That show what's exactly the parking is. That, I think, if that's the big question, if it's in the room, then we should definitely find out exactly what's there.
Do you have a signed lease
If I may.
with the gas station? Do you have a signed